Well, welcome to the call, everyone.
Good evening,
My name is Dr.
Good afternoon, or good morning, depending on your time zone. Assuming you can leave your health to chance is a mistake. Dr. Fisnick brings to bear the best combination of cutting-edge science and ancient wisdom to help you in doing what many thought was impossible, beating the odds. With no further ado, from far, far away in Fargo, North Dakota, Dr. Kurt Fisnick. Doc Fizz, take it away.
Thanks, Rob. I really appreciate you making sure that this call is recorded and we get it out to everybody. A lot of people, they're busy. Our lives are busy, and they can't get on the call, so they listen to the recording. And Rob, thanks to you, we have that recording to send out to everyone. DW can't be with us tonight. He's in the air. He's on his way to Ohio to do some presentations there, so I'll be doing the call myself. My name is Dr. Kurt Fisnick. I'm a chiropractor. I've practiced for nearly 30 years. Next year will be my 30th year. I'm up in Fargo, North Dakota, like Rob said, and I grew up here. I moved away, went to chiropractic college, and then eventually I found my way back here, and here I am. And, wherever you are, you make the best of it. And it's home. It's what you're used to. And I think that if I lived anywhere else, I lived in the big city. I lived in Minneapolis for a number of years. And I'll just tell you what, it stressed me out. And that's one of the things that I want to talk about tonight is that when we take a look at it, the title of tonight's call is, how are you going to live forever if you can't even make it to Thursday? It's Tuesday, and there's some people who won't make it the next 2 days. And it might sound kind of funny living forever, but, as I go through some of the things that I want to talk about tonight, well, I tell you what, forever is probably not possible, but living a long time is. And have you ever heard the saying, life is short, then you die? And I just hate that saying. I hate when I hear people say that. Or people will tell me, I'll tell them about our products, and they'll say, well, we all got to die from something. Friends of mine who smoke cigarettes, they'll tell me that. And I'm like, well, I guess that's true. Why don't you make it quicker and just go out and do something that's quicker than cigarettes, something that's less expensive? But, my thought is that we should all try and live life to the fullest. Push that throttle full speed ahead, and then pull it back just a little bit, and enjoy the ride. And there's so many things we can do. And think about it. How many people spend their life sitting in their favorite chair, watching other people in some dumb reality show that's not really reality? It's all staged. It's all just there for your entertainment. And that's how they live life. And when they don't have the same things that the actors have on TV, then they start, getting depressed. And then they go on Facebook and all of their fake Facebook friends of people that they really aren't friends with, that just are Facebook friends, that depresses them even more. My son did a little research on that for his college degree, and it was just amazing how much Facebook and the social media triggers and causes different kinds of depression. How many people do you know, how many of the people that are listening to the call or listening to the recording just never really experience life? They don't get to travel. Oh, my gosh. I know people that live right here in Fargo, North Dakota, that have never left Fargo. They've never been outside the metro area. And I'm telling you, if you've ever been here, it's not a big town. I can drive from the south side to the north side in about a half hour, or east-west, the same thing. I'll tell you what, that's not life. That's not living. And a lot of people, they don't even know who they are. They don't know what they want to be when they grow up. They don't know why they're here. It's no wonder that statistics say that a majority of people just hate what they're doing. They hate their life. They hate their job, and they just, to me it's crazy. So for those of you who are listening to me for the first time, welcome. And if you saw my business card, it's a real simple business card. It's white paper with black ink. On one side of the card, it says, "Have you ever thought about living forever?" ? And the other side, it just says Doc Fizz, and then it has my phone number, 701-680-9548. That's it. That's my business card. And when I hand that to people, my whole idea is that I want to develop curiosity. I want to find out who's curious about this, who really thought about it. I didn't ask you if you wanted to live forever. I just asked you, have you ever thought about it? And a majority of people have thought about it, even if it's just for a split second. They go, I wonder what, and then their mind goes off to something else. But I get people to talk about health and longevity, and although I'm a chiropractor, I really got into this. I started a couple years into my practice. I got bored with necks and backs. I used to tell people it was kind of like eating chicken. Who wants the neck? Who wants the back? It's not really the most popular parts of the chicken. And so with chiropractic, I told people the same thing. So I started really kind of jumping into the anti-aging field. I hired some medical doctors, one that was pretty prominent in the field at the time, but 9 years ago I got in a really bad motorcycle wreck, and they told me that I'd probably never walk again if they didn't amputate and give me a prosthetic. And I tell people that because I want you to know where I came from and how I got to where I am now. And I kind of challenged the medical staff up there in Minneapolis, and I said, well, you can always cut it off. You can't put it back on once you cut it off. And I said, I'd like to keep it. And $300,000 later, I've still got my leg. And I spent nearly 2 years crippled up. I was in a wheelchair. I was using crutches. I was using a cane. And it really, I tell people it made me feel old. It made me feel old. The hospital even suggested that I should think about putting myself in a nursing home. And I was thinking, at the time I was 45 years old. And if somebody unmuted themselves, please hit *6. But so I decided that that's not what I wanted to be. That's not what I wanted to do, and I didn't want to go through life that way. So I took my passion of age reversal medicine, and I really started jumping into it. And I just decided, I'm going to make the best of this. And I was watching a video last night. It was actually a video from 2003, and they took and they studied people who had won the lottery. They'd won the lotto, and they studied people who were in accidents like I was, paraplegic people, and basically, down the road they surveyed them after they'd been in their situation, after they'd gotten used to it, and they found out that really both groups of people were just as happy. Somebody who went from being able to walk to being a paraplegic, somebody who went from being broke to having all sorts of money, they ended up in the same place. They were happy with their situation. In fact, the people who won the lottery, they found that they were financially, most of them were back where they were before in a matter of time. And so they found that people make the best of their situations. And they interviewed a gentleman who had been falsely accused and falsely convicted of a crime, and he'd been in prison. He'd been incarcerated for nearly 40 years, and when they figured out through DNA that he didn't commit the crime and they let him out, he was in his 70s, and they asked him, they said, well, how do you feel? And he said, he made the best of it. And that's what we all need to do with our lives, and we accept where we are, and then from there you can go, hey, how am I going to make this thing better? So mentally, I really think that people need to do that, because then you can start working on the real challenges that I look at in getting older, and we need to look at that. So, I made a list of the I guess the top 10 or top 11 things that cause death in the United States, and in America, heart disease continues to be the number one killer. It actually takes out over 25% of the people in America, heart disease. And we'll talk a little bit about it later on what we can do to prevent it and what we can do to maybe help lower that risk. Number 2 is cancer. And again, we'll talk about that. And number 3, the reason I had 11 rather than 10 is that on the list that I looked at, they all forgot to list the number 3 cause of death, which is iatrogenic disease, which is physician-induced. And those websites conveniently left that out there, but I threw it back in. Number 4 is lung disease, chronic lung disease. Number 5 is accidental death. Number 6 is strokes. Number 7 is Alzheimer's. Number 8 is diabetes. Number 9 is infections. Number 10, kidney disease. And then number 11 was suicide. And these 11 things actually make up between 75 to 80% of all the deaths in the United States. So you figure all the other things that cause death only make up 20 to 25%. And the top 3 are 50% of all the deaths. So if we could really just kind of go after those 3, which is heart disease, cancer, and iatrogenic disease, that would lower the death rate of the 50%. So let's kind of look at some things, but some of the really, really, I'm going to call them the uber wealthy people in the world have gone out and made challenges, and they've hired people to kind of hack the code of life. What do we need to do to increase longevity and get it so people can live, using my terms, live forever, immortality, if that's at all possible? And a lot of the things that they're doing is they're taking and they're looking at diet and exercise. And the physicians and the drug research companies are taking the things from that happen in your body with diet and exercise, and they're trying to recreate the situation using drugs. And I just go, well, if you're trying to recreate it with drugs, why not just use the real thing, which is the diet and exercise? But again, that's just how I think, and there's no money in that, of course, so that's why they're doing it that way. It's all money driven. But here's something that I found was interesting, that if you look at the United States Social Security data, if you take a 25-year-old today, what's the probability of that person dying before they hit the age of 26? So in the next year, what's the probability of a 25-year-old dying? And it's somewhere near 0.1%. And so the question is, how can you take that risk factor and apply it to the rest of your life? How could you apply it when you're 50 years old, 51, 60, 61, 65, 70? How can you take and lower the risk factor of you dying in the next 12 months by 0.1%. And that's kind of been the question that these uber wealthy are paying these researchers to look into. And they're saying that it's very probable that we should be able to live past the age of 120 quite easily. And the database that they're creating is huge. They're saying by the year 2020, they're going to have a database of over 1 million human genome sequences. And what that basically means is that when you look at the human genome, the United States government, along with some other governments, paid these researchers to take and map out all the various possibilities, probabilities of using the sequences for our DNA so that they could code it. And we're going to have a huge reference library. I called it the reference center of longevity. And as you look at that, it's going to be super huge with all these different databases, so we can take a look at somebody's sequence and we can decide here's what you need to do with your DNA. That's really going to be pretty cool. And I think that the problem with it is that there's so many people that have just kind of, I don't know what you want to call it, but they've just accepted and they've gone into kind of a pro-aging trance where, you know, they're just happy to accept that aging is unavoidable. And if anybody knows me, I'm into vintage cars. I like cars. And I know from driving old cars that, you know, you got to do a little bit more maintenance. You got to do a little bit more work to keep them on the road, kind of prevention type of things. And isn't that the key to the human body? Isn't that the key? So anti-aging medicine is predicted to be probably the biggest industry that ever hit the face of the planet. I mean, think about that. The anti-aging or the age reversal industry is predicted to be the largest industry by far, by huge margins, than any other industry, bigger than the automobile industry, bigger than the computer industry, bigger than the cell phone industry, bigger than any of this. And so radical life extension isn't just for science fiction anymore. I mean, you got some serious people with serious money, some serious thinkers out there helping to put this together, and they're funding research into this. And right now, a lot of the research is going into extending what we call the health span, not the lifespan, right? And what I mean by that is that they're just trying to find out how do we take and extend the amount of time that you're alive where you're free of disease, you're free of the age-reversing diseases, you're free of the frailty, the diseases that just make you, yeah, you're alive, but you can't enjoy it, right? Let's figure that kind of things out, and that's really what they've been spending the money on. And we're going to see in the next probably 10 years that the focus is all of a sudden going to switch, and it's going to focus on lifespan. Because now that we've figured out a little bit about getting people healthy, you got to remember that healthy people tend to live longer. And so you're going to see a lot of this. And today, a lot of research is being spent on specific diseases and you know, how to make it, like how to lower the risk of cancer, for example. And you'll have the American Heart Health, you know, Association. You'll have the American Cancer Association. You'll have the Diabetes Association. And so they're focusing all the money from that one association into the one disease. And what we're going to see here in the near future is that that's going to change, and all of a sudden it's going to be the focus of how do we just slow the aging process, all those diseases. And when you take a look at it, back in the 1900s, if you made it to the age of 50, you were considered to be an old man or an old woman. Today, we've doubled that in the last almost 120 years, and we're almost making it to the age of 80, the average lifespan. And a lot of that can really be pointed at that we decreased childhood diseases. And now we're going after the aging diseases. So you'll see that. And you'll see that as a person ages, and as we've increased the lifespan, as we've increased the age of the human, we have more heart disease, we have more cancer, we have more diabetes, we have more Alzheimer's, things like that. So the standard medical approach has been, let's cure the one disease at a time. One disease at a time. So you go in, they say, oh, hey, you got this, let's fix that. Oh, you got that now, well, let's fix that. And so they just go after one disease at a time. But once we start looking at the root cause of aging, then we can reduce all of the age-related disease simultaneously. And the researchers are saying it'll work. It'll work. And so you got top researchers looking at it. And 5 years ago, age reversal was considered interesting by a lot of physicians. And now researchers at Harvard are saying we can do it. It's possible. We can take and extend the life of a mouse and a rat. So we can do it with a human. One of the big inspirations has been drugs that were inspired by resveratrol, right? And the French paradox. And they're looking at this and they're saying cellular immortality is very probable in the future. And they're saying that if a person's healthy, because a lot of these people in the past have been saying, oh my gosh, if we increase the lifespan of the human body, the problem that they've thought about is that how are we going to have the money to take care of all those old people? Well, now what they're saying is that let's get the disease under control, let's get people healthy, and then the cool thing about it is it doesn't take much to take care of a healthy person. It doesn't cost a lot of money to take care of a healthy person. I found this interesting as I was, kind of snooping around and looking at that. A lot of you, if you've been on my calls before, you've heard me talking about having genomic testing run on yourself and find out where your mistakes in your DNA are located. Those are called SNPs, SNP, SNPs, single nucleotide polymorphisms. And these SNPs kind of say where the mistakes are in your DNA. Well, one of the companies that researches SNPs, one of the co-founders of this company, the company name is 23andMe, one of the co-founders, her husband is actually the co-founder of Google. Isn't that interesting? So you got some money back in these things, and so I mean that's why I'm saying this is really going to be really cool. Later on this summer, I'm going to a huge event. It's one of the first events of its kind with the I guess what they're kind of calling is the radical life extensionists, people who believe in radical life extension. And I'm going to that this summer, and I'm spending 5 days with some of these these top guys in this field, and the director of engineering at Google is going to be there, and he really is one of these guys that just he's putting a lot of money into this thing. He's putting a lot of research money into it. And so you're seeing a lot of the people in the Silicon Valley out there in California just dumping money into this thing. But let's talk a little bit here. Why am I with Sisel? Why am I working with Sisel? Obviously, you can tell that what drives me, what drives my passion is that I really want to live to be an old age, a ripe old age, but I don't want to be sick. I don't want to suffer from all the disease. And I just tell people that if you could take a look, and I talk with my hands a lot. I went to school for engineering before I went into chiropractic, and I like to think in graphs. I like numbers and statistics and things like that. If you could look at a graph, just imagine your life. If it was perfect, you'd have perfect health. You'd be healthy, and all of a sudden it's your time to go, and boom, the next day you're gone. Wouldn't that be just the perfect way? No suffering, everything is just perfect. But in today's world, if you looked at that same graph, from day one, all of a sudden you see your health plummeting below the point of where what we call disease. And that's somewhere around 40 to 50% is where you actually have a disease state where it's named a disease. So you have to have a loss of 50 to 60% of the function of your body before you get into that disease state. And then from there, it's just a slow, gradual decline. So a lot of us are just having this slow death rather than life. And so I've talked about that for nearly 30 years with people. So what I like about Sisel is that we're approaching this thing in a way that we really have some products that work together good. I mean, like when you take a look at heart disease, and almost, I'm going to say every chronic health problem has an inflammatory component, inflammation. Well, what product do we have that really battles inflammation? Well, the number one thing that I can think of right off the top of my head is fucoidan. Man, I'll tell you what, if you want to live forever, you darn well better start looking at fucoidan. And that's perhaps why it's one of the number one selling, it is the number one selling product that Sisel has. It lowers inflammation. The product is sold around the world. It's been used, and it works. When we take a look at the heart disease, what's another cause of heart disease? Toxicity. We take a look at skincare products. A lot of the products that your friends use, because, of course, you don't use any over-the-counter products that have toxins in them, and I won't get into all the toxins, but these toxins, within less than half a minute, they're in your body, and most of them are fat-soluble. Well, guess what? Cholesterol is a fat, and so all these toxins are being deposited in the cholesterol, what's being clogged in your arteries, and it's causing plaquing. It's causing hardening of your arteries. That's one of the causes of heart disease. So wouldn't it make sense to be on the body shield to pull these toxins out? Wouldn't it make sense to be on non-toxic skincare products, non-toxic personal care products, so that you lower your risk of heart disease? I mean, wow, think about that. Personal care products so you don't get heart disease. And that's going to lower your high blood pressure, because as you pull those toxins out, all of a sudden the arteries start to get more pliable again. When we take a look at 4-Restore, one of the things that it does, it increases the nitric oxide levels in your body. And when you increase nitric oxide, it makes the arteries more pliable. They're soft. And there's been just a ton of research on it. I forget what year, but there was a Nobel Prize done for the work on nitric oxide. Let's look at the number 2 killer in America, cancer. Cancer, they say that 80 to 90% of it is preventable. 80 to 90%. And what's the number one cause of cancer? Toxicity. So again, take a look. If we're going to attack 2 diseases at the same time and lower our risk, we want to attack the risk by lowering the toxicity, and we can do that with Body Shield. We can do that with Fucoidan. And as they're finding with Resveratrol has such great properties on kind of reversing some of that. We can't say any medical claims, cure, treat, prevent, anything like that. But if you look at the research on Resveratrol, it's crazy good. I was just talking to a friend of mine down in Florida. He had some liver cancer, and I had recommended that she get on some Resveratrol and high dosage of it. And she's starting to see that her disease is turning around, and her medical doctor, her oncologist, told her, you better keep taking what you're taking. You better keep doing what you're doing. And we've heard stories of it right here on this call with people that have had some pretty serious situations turning around using that. So then we take a look at the number 3 cause of death in America, which is physician-induced iatrogenic disease, right? Well, what's the best way of reducing that? Well, reduce the number of times you have to go to your doctor, and you're going to reduce the risk of them recommending something that's going to kill you, right? And hopefully, you know, any of the doctors that are on the call agree with me and say, yeah, I mean, let's get people so they don't have to be so sick, don't have to come in, because they're just overwhelmed. They're overwhelmed, and that's why we're seeing so many problems. Lung diseases, and when we talk about lung disease, it's a collection of chronic diseases: chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, COPD, bronchitis, emphysema, asthma. And again, these are all caused by, a lot of them are caused by, they're triggered by inflammation. Inflammation triggered by allergies, infections, air pollution, chemicals. Well, wouldn't it make sense that if we start using a product like Eternity that increases oxygen flow into the cells, and we start increasing the Fucoidan, which takes away inflammation, and we start taking the Super Omega, the omega-3s are so good at getting rid of inflammation, and the vitamin C's that's found in our products, and using SpectraMax, because our body needs the 74 trace essential minerals that are found in there to complete the healing process. According to a study at Harvard Medical, they said that it's like 97% of us are missing key essential trace minerals and vitamins in our body. And when the doctors pointed out and they said, hey, you're missing this, they came back and studied the same person down the road, and they found out, well, they fixed that problem, but now they have 5 other diseases that are triggered by it. And so they said, you know, you just want to take them all so that you make sure you have enough, and that's what we have with our SpectraMax. And then we take a look at the next number 5 killer, which is accidents. Well, wouldn't you agree that accidents are caused by people who are careless, people who aren't paying attention, people that are overstressed, people that are tired? The number 1 reason that people go to the doctor, or one of the top 2 every single year, is because people are tired. Well, we've got products that can help people get healed up from the diseases that they have, so that their body isn't constantly fighting inflammation. And all of a sudden now you're going to start noticing that the fatigue is going to go down, stress is going to go down, and you're going to have fewer and fewer accidents. The number 6 cause of disease is strokes. And strokes is when the blood vessels in the brain start to get blocked. What causes that? Well, a lot of times it's increased blood pressure. What causes that? Well, diet, being overweight, lack of exercise, smoking, diabetes. We've got the things that can help with all of those things. They found that if you want to lower your risk of stroke by 26%, 26%, all you need to do is increase your protein intake per day by 20 grams. Increase your protein intake by a mere 20 grams, and you're going to lower your risk of stroke by 26%. That's huge. Think about the Sisel product that we already have. There's almost 20 grams right there. And then we start looking at dementia and Alzheimer's. Dementia's in a lot of circles, they're saying that it's more or less it's a type 3 diabetes. So why don't we just treat it like we would diabetes? It's interesting. They found that 80% of people with Alzheimer's have heart disease. So again, let's start treating the Alzheimer's and dementia like heart disease and diabetes, and all of a sudden, we're going to start getting this stuff under control. And diabetes, I'll tell you what, type 2 diabetes, it's if you can't get that under control, you're just really not paying attention to what's going on. I mean, using these different products that we have, the Triangle of Life, using the Sisel, using the different products to lower blood sugars. I'm telling you, we can get these things all under control, and I'm trying to kind of speed up what I'm saying because I know I'm getting behind here. So really, folks, I'm telling you, these are the top 10 killers. And if we just go after the first 3 or 4, we can lower this thing by 50 to 80% based on the statistics that we already have. Thank you, everybody, for joining me, and I'm sorry that I ran over a little bit tonight. And we'll have this recording done. Rob will have it done in the next 10 to 15 minutes. Rob, thank you. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time and jumping on the call tonight. Those of you that are listening to the recording, thanks for taking the time to do that. And have a wonderful, long, healthy life. Let's all live to be 125 years old so we can beat the odds here and make it past Thursday. Back to you.
Thank you, Dr. Fismick. Thank you all for being here for Sisel's Doctor's Clinic. This call will be posted within a half hour, possibly 15 minutes. Until next week, we wish you Godspeed.